Hello, everyone, and welcome to Bet the Edge. This is Drew Dinsick of NBC Sports, joined by Vaughn Dalzell as Jay is off in beautiful Indianapolis, enjoying the combine, hopefully getting us some good intel, which we can use to make some fun prop bets there. But that said, thanks to everyone watching our NBC Sports YouTube channel. Coming up, we will take a deeper look at who could grab the top seeds at the NCAA tournament, plus discuss bubble teams like Arkansas, Indiana, and Ohio State's prices to make the tournament. Vaughn and I will also wrap the show handicapping the NBA's Western Conference, including which bets besides the Thunder we'd back to make the finals. Vaughn, welcome in. Of course, it is Wednesday morning as we are recording, and we are in the afterglow of a shocking defeat of the Florida Gators, which honestly makes me want to buy a little bit low on these guys, but I'm going to need to kick the tires a little bit and get your take on some of these exotics, which are finally popping. There are prices up for the number one seed market in the NCAA tournament and also the total SEC teams. Let's start with the number one seed. Right now, shockingly, Auburn is off the board, so I guess that is a done deal. Duke is practically off the board at minus 20,000. Houston is firmed as the third most likely one seed at minus 250. And then it's a little bit of a guessing game as who will get the last number one seed. How do you see this whole field in general shaping up? Do you agree that the top three are pretty much, we'll say, locked in? I know Houston minus 250 is not a lock, obviously, but what is your opinion on the way that this shakes out as we round out the rest of the season?
Yeah, certainly a lot could happen still with 3 or 4 games left. I mean, you saw the Florida Gators losing to Georgia. The only time they led in that game was a little bit over a minute left, and then Georgia just goes on a run and cleans house on them, which probably puts them in the field, which we'll talk about, total amount of SEC teams. But, Drew, it's hard to say that, it's an SEC race for that final one seed more than likely. You got Alabama, you got Florida, you got Tennessee. When you look at the schedule, certainly points to Florida having the better edge here. I mean, they play Texas A&M, Alabama on the road, then Ole Miss. That's a much better schedule than Alabama, who goes to Tennessee on Saturday. Then they host Florida on Wednesday, and then they go to Auburn on Saturday. That is a murderer's row to solidify yourself as the one seed before the SEC tournament. So seemingly like the value is on Florida right now, but then they go there, and Tennessee's got that game up too. And Tennessee's a team that I can't figure out. I can't bet a game-to-game basis, but I still think they're solidified themselves at least a 2 seed right now. So, when I went over my seedings, I had Auburn, Duke, Houston, Alabama as the one seeds. That's definitely liable to change with Alabama's schedule. But Florida, Tennessee, St. John's, and Texas Tech are my 2 seeds, Drew. And I don't think any of those teams. Yeah, St. John's is probably the red flag for a lot of people. But I'm not understanding why they're as high as they are in a lot of people's minds. But so I kind of like Florida as of right now. I think the value's on them. I just don't trust Tennessee, even though they have the best schedule of the 3.
Okay. Let me ask you an opinion question, less math-based. As the committee is populating their 4th one seed, more likely to try to sort of round things out and represent a different conference, or take whoever is sort of the survivor out of these 3 SEC teams? And then second opinion question, would they put in someone who they think is clearly the best of those teams, or just who is sort of the hottest, or just maybe someone that they think is vulnerable to create a little drama?
I would say they're definitely going to take an SEC team no matter what there is that 4. And I mean, I would not be shocked, honestly, if one of those SEC teams make a jump and we have, 2 of them in there, or 3 in general, 3 out of 4 SEC squads is the number one seed. But it's more likely that we get 2 of those, Drew. But man, this is tough because I think the hottest team will be the one to make it. I mean, we still have to play the tournament champion, right? Tournament conference championship. So a lot still can happen leading up to that. And the winner of the SEC could certainly be Tennessee or Florida. And then that gives them, the edge over getting that 1 seed too. So, it's still up in the air right now, but I would say it's solidify one of them. Don't even look at the Big Ten. Don't even look at the Big East. Yeah, like these teams have no chance. Michigan State, Wisconsin, Michigan, Maryland. These teams are not going to be 1 seeds whatsoever. They'll be lucky if they get a 2 seed. It's going to be the hottest team there getting a 2 seed. But most of the Big Ten are going to be 3, 4, and 5 seeds.
Okay. Well, you're popping my bubble here, because I was literally going to say, like, if Auburn just wins the SEC, and there's definitely plenty of worlds where any of these teams, all of these teams, could crash out early because the depth is so absurd. does that open the door for the Big Ten? But let's just throw cold water on that now.
No,
Michigan State's dead money. Wisconsin's dead money. Let's move on to the total number of SEC teams then, since we're here. Right now, the over-under is 12.5. 12.5 SEC teams to make the tournament. It's a fair price.
Yeah.
Over is -105. Under is -125. Some of the public projections out there have anywhere between 12 and as many as 14 SEC teams in. 14 is all but 2, I guess. No LSU, no South Carolina. We can throw them out. So the most absurd world, 14 get in. Do you have a sense of sort of the current state of the committee in terms of rewarding the SEC for depth as opposed to, really penalizing some of these teams towards the bottom, like the Arkansas, Texases, and Oklahomas of the world?
Yeah, well, we're talking about, all these teams getting the SEC, and we have to take away from other conference. I think the ACC is one of those conferences that probably, lose a bit or two to the SEC. But it's hard to say why won't these teams make it. Like Georgia now put themselves back in that conversation, right? They were 2-9 over their last 11 games, and then they beat Florida. So now Georgia's obviously on the bubble. You got Vanderbilt. Their only road SEC win has come against LSU on January 4th, but they beat Tennessee, they beat Kentucky, they beat Texas at home. So all those things go. And speaking of Texas, they're another team that's on the bubble too. Bart Torvik giving them, and a lot of models are giving them between a 50 and 60% chance of making the tournament, which is still a coin flip in some people's markets. And you got Oklahoma, a team who people are saying, well, they beat Arizona, they beat Michigan, they beat Louisville, they beat Providence. That's all back in November and December. So how much do we value that, heading into March?
Yeah.
And we even have a team like Mississippi State, Drew, who's a 7 seed that projected right now. And I'm like, how? But they're getting road wins in the SEC, which is hard to do. So I think it's very possible. We have over 12.5. I kept trying to find a reason for a lot of these schools, but I think Georgia's the defining one, whether we get 12 or 13 teams in the SEC. I think it's definitely going to be 12 or 13, no more, no less. But Georgia's probably the one that's a defining factor.
Okay, so who's out then for you? Texas, really, or Oklahoma?
Oklahoma, man. I mean,
Oklahoma. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just not buying into them. But that's probably a hot take because when you put them up against other teams that are coming out of other conferences, like I would probably say the Pitt Panthers are a team that's going to have to be out. If we're taking ACC schools, but that's a team that certainly should be in over like a Pitt Panther squad. If we're talking Florida State, Georgia Tech, like Stanford, these are teams that the SEC should have their schools over. So, I say, Oklahoma should be out. But then you ask me, well, if they're on the bubble against Pitt or Stanford or Georgia Tech, I'm taking Oklahoma. So I got to take the over here for the 12.5, right?
Yeah, this one's tricky because Oklahoma is 1.3 wins over the bubble via Bart Torvik. Texas minus 1.15, so right on the bubble effectively. Obviously this can still change as these teams will all play each other. Fascinating for me to see that Arkansas to make is minus 300. That's not congruous, I don't think, with 12.5 minus 105. Am I crazy?
Yeah. Well, when you're looking at it, I mean, you got the John Calipari factor, right? So people are going to say you're not going to leave him out the field. It's definitely possible. And, Bart Torvik gets them almost a 70% chance to make it. Great defense, top 20 defense, great 3-point. They play fast, but only got 7% of the minutes back from last year, Drew. That's because the NIL is now taking over college basketball. So all these teams are brand new. But for the value of them to not make it, the no here at plus 220, they have Texas at home. They're going to be maybe a 3.5 to a 5-point favorite there. They go to South Carolina. That's predicted as a 1-point game. So that'll probably end up them being an underdog there, right? Then you go another back-to-back road game at Vanderbilt where you're projected to be a 2-point underdog. You lose against South Carolina, you're probably becoming a 3 or 4-point dog there. Then you come back home against Mississippi State where you're only a 2-point favorite. Those are a lot of close games and spreads, right, in the final 4 games of the year. So it's really hard for me to say, Arkansas at minus 300, they're locked in. They're definitely making it. They're a team that's on the bubble too. So if you're forcing me to make a player, I would say no, but still odds on they're going to make it because they go 2-2 and you got Calipari as your coach. You win one game in the SEC tournament, you're probably likely to be in. So, I think the value is right, but for plus 220 for the no, might be worth it. Or, just fading them 2 out of those 4 games or fading them all 4 games because you'll get plus 100 or better on the opposite side. So you'll make money.
This looks like such a tempting arbitrage to take no on Arkansas and take over on 12.5, right? Like Texas beats them head to head on the road this week. All of a sudden, like, well, if there's 12 teams, Arkansas could be the one out, right? Oh man, this is tricky. I'm going to need to dig in a little more on Oklahoma. You kind of spooked me a little bit with the fact that all of their, quality wins came so much, so early in the season. And a lot of times the committee really does throw some cold water on teams that haven't done enough lately.
Oklahoma's last 4 wins: South Carolina, Vanderbilt, Mississippi State, and Arkansas. So they even got,
there's 3 tournament teams in there.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we talked about the top and the bottom. I'm probably going to play that, by the way. Arkansas no and over 12.5 just for the LOLs. We talked about the top: Auburn 1, Alabama 1 or 2, Florida 1 or 2, Tennessee likely 2. We talked about the bottom. I'm going to say Arkansas out, Texas in, Oklahoma finds their way in. We get to 13. I think Georgia is pretty well in, and so we'll just include them in this conversation. But I just want to rip through these real quickly: Kentucky, Missouri, A&M, Mississippi, Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, and Georgia. Give me your gut reaction real quickly here on whether they're overseeded or underseeded by the current projections. Kentucky is a 3 seed.
3's over. They got to go. They got to be a 4 or 5. Yeah.
Missouri is a 3 seed.
I like that. They're hot right now. One of the hottest teams in the country.
A&M 4 seed.
Probably just right, but I think they finish as a 5.
Okay. Ole Miss 6 seed.
Sounds about right.
Okay. Mississippi State 7.
They're a classic 8-9 for me. I mean, Mississippi State's a great 8-9 matchup for anybody.
Vanderbilt classic 8-9.
That's another one too. I would say more likely a 9, but I would be okay with them being a 10, 9 or 10.
Okay. And Georgia. Do you agree Georgia has done enough? And do you think that?
No, I don't. But all the models say they do. Okay. I mean, Bartorvik gives them an 80% chance. I'm like, this team is 3-9 in their last 12 games. And that's the meat of their schedule and who they play with a 312th ranked non-conference schedule. So I'm puzzled sometimes that Georgia is in right now, but at the same time, all the models say they are. And I'm an expert, but I disagree with the other ones. But yeah, I guess they would be the 10 seed as well, Drew.
Well, this is probably the last time we're going to get to do these types of exotic markets, because after this year, we'll have a little bit of clarity of what of the way that the committee is going to treat these mega conferences now. I kind of just assume that they're going to put the brand names in. Like, that's the whole point of this. And so I think 13 is coming for the SEC. But we'll move on here. But before doing so, I don't know if you know this, Vaughn, but Ricky Fowler joins a host of stars on the PGA Tours. They travel to Florida to battle the Bear Trap at the Cognizant Classic. Make sure to check out the action in the Palm Beaches Saturday and Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern on NBC and Peacock. We move from one mega conference to the other, Vaughn. Big Ten basketball. They also have props up for over-under Big Ten teams to make the tournament, and the number is 9.5, which who's the 10th team? Question mark. Over is plus 110. Under is minus 160. So we were obviously not the first ones here to feast on this kind of soft number. Talk me through sort of the way you see the Big Ten and the likely number that are going to make.
Well, we know there are 8 teams 100% in, right? Michigan State, Michigan, Wisconsin, Maryland, Purdue, UCLA, Illinois, and Oregon. Those teams are solidified. Okay. The 3 teams that are in question right now are Indiana, Ohio State, Nebraska. And, Indiana has a real opportunity. When I look at the Hoosiers, they have the least likely chance, according to Bartorvik and Ken Palm, at 25%. But they get Penn State up next at home. That's a great game. You're at Washington. You'll likely be the favorite. You sneak up on Oregon and beat Oregon, who's already in the field. Now you're pretty much in before you host Ohio State. So, these next 3 games are absolutely crucial for the Hoosiers. But I love the road they have to make some noise here, to make the NCAA tournament. Ohio State playing some of the worst basketball right now. I mean, they've lost 3 straight games. You get blown out to Northwestern after having a close game to UCLA when you should have covered, if not won that game at some points. Now they're giving us a minus 150, plus 115. I would argue the Buckeyes are the least likely of those 3 teams to make it. They go at USC tonight. So, as of this recording, they could absolutely be a totally different number when you guys listen to this tomorrow. But they have Nebraska at home, 4.5-point favorite, and then they're at Indiana. I don't like that schedule for them, Drew. So, Nebraska gets Minnesota and Iowa at home in 2 of their last 3 games, and Ohio State. That's a big game between the 2, Nebraska and Ohio State. But Indiana seems like the one to make it in here for me, and Nebraska has the second best chance. So I'm going to say over 9.5. We get 10 in exactly, and Ohio State's the one that makes it out.
Okay. Well, I fully endorse that, by the way. Ohio State looks quite strong to me as well. I'm
a huge Buckeye supporter this year too. Like,
yeah, it's a bummer. Like, I'm kind of I'm disappointed with like they're not playing up to their rating, even close, honestly. Right now they are 0.9 wins below the bubble via Torvik. And like some of these games left on their schedule look like they could stub their toe. There's a very real world that this Ohio State team finishes 500 or worse. I don't think that's getting them a bid.
15 and 13. Like, yeah, I mean, not a lot of teams that are 15 and 13 are even in this conversation.
Okay. I'm going to lock in some Indiana yes and some Ohio State no. But actually, if Indiana yes comes through, that gives us 9. Nebraska would be the one that's really kind of in the mix there as far as taking this over 9.5. I don't see Nebraska getting in personally. Right now, they're in the last 4 in, but they are smack on the bubble right now, and not a lot of opportunity. Easy road, but yeah,
Minnesota, Ohio State, and Iowa. Like, those are 3 very winnable games for them.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Huh.
But
maybe I need to rethink things.
He did lose to
Penn State. That would be a 10-team Big Ten then. And obviously we gotta figure out how that math works otherwise. But I could see it, I guess. Okay. Let's talk one other Big Ten team before we move on. The terrible Turtles from Maryland they are fulfilling every general kind of, they're checking every box as we kind of round into the home stretch here. The one area that they've started to fall off a little bit is the rate at which they're getting 3-pointers up, which is a little surprising. It's not, and then from my test, it's not because like teams are defending the 3-point line more aggressively, and that's opening things up for them in the middle. But they're kind of in no man's land right now in terms of rating at like the 11th best. But the key for me as I look across their statistical profile is that there's really no key and obvious weakness. It is tough for teams in the Big Ten in general to force turnovers just because of the way these teams are coached and rostered and the way, styles of basketball. Maryland is effective at that, which to me at least makes them a little bit less likely to stub their toe come tournament time. They have shortened to make the Final Four to 9-1. They have shortened to win the national championship to 50-1. Right now, to win the Big Ten regular season, it's plus 650, which feels a hair out of reach, but they are playing Michigan State tonight. What's your current temperature on Maryland? And do you think if I bought high on them a few weeks ago, for instance, should I be selling high on them now, or buy low on them a few weeks ago? Should I be selling high on them now?
Yeah, I actually gave you a shout out on VSiN yesterday because, they were asking me about, the Big Ten regular season champ now. They're like, what's the best bet on the board? And I said, gosh, I wish I was with Drew 3-4 weeks ago with Maryland because, not only I was on par with who's going to be the leader with Michigan State, then Michigan, back to Michigan State. But now all the value is on the Maryland Terrapins right now. And they're 3.5, 4-point favorites tonight. So, they get that win. The ball is in their court, certainly. And, Penn State, Michigan, Northwestern, you win 2 of those 3 games at least, probably all 3 of them, honestly. This team has been awesome, Drew. I mean, I give you credit for seeing it, back in January, early, whenever they were still coming off losses at Washington, at Oregon, where people like me were down on them and saying, this is the same Maryland's team. They're great at home, not great on the road. But they have got some road wins, over the last 3 weeks. Illinois and Indiana aren't easy places to win at. They won back-to-back there. So that gives you credit to them. I question the neutral court atmospheres if they can win there. You only have 2 neutral court games on your belt, Villanova and Syracuse. You might as well put those both in trash cans, right? No one's going to give you credit for those 2 wins way back in November, December in those neutral courts. But, I think they will be battle-tested enough in this Big Ten where they have gone up against Wisconsin and beat Wisconsin. They have trashed Iowa, USC, Nebraska, Rutgers, all the teams they're supposed to. They don't have those letdown games. And when they do, it's on the road. In a very close game. So I love the Terps, Drew. I've turned the corner. I'm with you. I think the value is on them. You might as well be buying into them somehow.
Okay. If I'm holding 150-1 to ship and they give me a good cash out, would you take it?
That's.
I mean,
50
it's
to 1
short.
now.
I think obviously you need to get that. We need to get a lot
They'll
closer.
keep getting shorter too. They could win the
We
Big
need to get
Ten
a lot closer.
tournament. They really could.
Yeah, they again, like they're like the key for Maryland more so than being like they were underrated. And again, when we were talking about it, they were kind of in the mid to high 20s, I feel like. And now they're like around 11 as they've kind of consistently risen with their performances lately. But it's much more about where there are no holes and the fact that everybody above them does seem to be flawed. I will say that Missouri still looks pretty dang good. Florida still looks pretty dang good, and some of the other teams who we were a little tough on, like maybe the Duke Blue Devils is a good example. All of a sudden, they look pretty dang good too. So it could be I'm gonna keep my eye on these games. Obviously, this game against Michigan State, which we don't know the outcome of now as we are recording, is going to be hugely impactful. But if they can get that win and then they can beat Michigan on the road, and what is likely to be a 2.5 point dog spot, then we are cooking with gas. But we move on, and we will watch the biggest names in sports talk, including Mike Florio, Dan Patrick, Dan Lebitard, and Matthew Berry, as they cover the biggest moments on and off the field each weekday on the NBC Sports Now channel. It is now available on Peacock and free on most streaming platforms. Learn more at nbc.com/now. Thursday at MGM, make sure to take advantage of an any sport parlay boost. Add a parlay wager, minimum odds of 4-1 to your bet slip. Then bet up to the specified max stake and activate your token. If you win your bet with the token applied, you'll score extra winnings on your wager. Let's talk about the West in the NBA, Vaughn, because it's getting very, very interesting. Not only has Oklahoma City shown a propensity to, I don't know, decide to lose in a game where they looked like it was impossible for them to do so against Minnesota without Rudy Gobert the other night. But the key, and the die is cast for me. I've made my bed with the Thunder, and I'm just going to have to now ride this out until the end of May, hopefully the end of May. But I am losing a little bit of sleep this week as a Thunder backer, Vaughn. And it is because the gap between them and the rest of the West is narrower, not because of downgrades to OKC, but because of upgrades to some of these other teams, including teams that they may face relatively early on their path. Current state of the West: Thunder are -115. My fare for them is still around -140. The Nuggets are 5-1. The Lakers are 7-1. The Grizzlies are 12-1. The Warriors are 14-1. The Clippers are 22-1. And we'll give the Timberwolves a shout at 40-1, and that about rounds out your likely winners. What's your temperature on the West? Have you enjoyed the work of the Lakers and the Warriors of late? Do you think that the Nuggets are for real? Do you have a strong opinion on who the second best team is?
Well, my question to you first: you don't think the Mavericks have a shot?
I am kind of will see it. I'll believe it when I see it that Anthony Davis is going to be available.
If he takes the court, though, I mean, you got to figure they have a chance, right? This is the window. They traded Luka to get Anthony Davis for this window.
I don't know. I don't know in all my years of handicapping the NBA, Vaughn, if I have had a bigger red flag of a re-injury risk than if Anthony Davis takes the court again in the month of February or March. So, I mean, if he's out there and if they're full strength, I'll definitely kind of rethink my opinion, I suppose. But for me, the Mavericks and the Rockets are kind of the ones that are probably going to be in the mix, at least for a playoff spot, but don't really have a realistic shot. But for real though, who's number two for you?
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say, you have to look at the three teams that made the big trades, right? The Lakers, Warriors, Mavericks is probably like who's gonna make that run. Obviously, you're throwing the cold water on the Mavs, so we'll chill out on that talk. But the Lakers and Warriors, I mean, playoff Jimmy Butler is a real thing. Like we've been loving the Miami Heat the past 3 years on the show, right? And I think that that's going to translate to the Warriors just fine. He's going to bring that competitive edge. And Steph Curry, best shooter of all time. Everyone else buys in. So Warriors are definitely tempting at 14-1 right now. I loved what I saw last night from the triple double from Luka, LeBron scoring. He turned the ball over far too much, but that's part of what's going to happen with LeBron and Luka as a duo. I just still can't trust the Lakers defensively in a 7-game series versus a lot of teams. So that's why I'm going to be out on them. But I think that you should relax. I think you should be happy with your Thunder ticket, Drew, because I don't think the West is nearly as competitive. A lot of teams will beat up themselves before getting to that Western Conference championship. But the Nuggets have a lot of red flags. They've been playing great basketball over the last 7-8 games, but they still have those red flags, man. And the Suns have worked themselves out of the talk. So it's just, feel good, man. Don't feel so nervous about it.
Okay. Well, I will give you my general projections as we currently sit here and look at the board. OKC, I have finishing with the 1 seed, 68 wins. I am projecting right now Denver as your 2 seed with 53. I'm projecting Memphis as your 3 seed with 52. And then your 4-5 right now is really, really fun. There is a super narrow gap for me in terms of wins between Houston, LA, Minnesota, and Golden State. Those 4 teams are clustered very tightly, all right around 48 wins for me. Let's just pretend for the sake of argument that it's Lakers, Minnesota in the 4-5. Houston slides to 6. Golden State qualifies as your 7. The Clippers qualify as your 8. Does any kind of path or any kind of matchup really inspire you if this is the world we're looking at, where you have potentially a vulnerable Denver team as a 2 seed against the Warriors? Like that Denver Warriors matchup, does that make you want to make a bet on the Warriors? Minnesota Lakers, does that feel like a bet on Minnesota and against the Lakers defense? So, if this is the world we're living in, what really stands out to you in terms of a path to prey on?
Yeah, I mean, if that was if you got the Clippers in round 1, I'd be very happy with that as a Thunder supporter. The Lakers and Timberwolves matchup potentially would be a very intriguing one, right? But I think most of the money and probably the Lakers would be the favorite in that series, and that's a team that I think I'd be buying into as well. I don't think you get Luka Doncic and become a first-round exit. But the Lakers have a propensity, Drew. Even last year we talked about too much. Like, why are you not playing for seeding once you get into the final week of the season? The Lakers just were okay with who they were going to play in the first round, and that turned out to be the death of them. So this year, hopefully you learn from your mistakes. And I think that's a very important thing to think about. But I think a team like the Rockets, they're going to give someone a run to the 6 or 7 games, but I would say the Rockets lose in that first round, even if they play, a team like the Nuggets. So I like the Warriors being a 7 seed, 6-7 seed. I think they're going to be a very dangerous team, Drew. How about you?
I agree. I'm like you said, we loved Jimmy Butler the last several years. I would say I feared him. He strikes fear in the heart of men, the way that he kind of performs in the playoffs in particular. As a Thunder guy, like, please get me a Warriors into the other side of the draw and not an 8. And I mean, honestly, like the way they're being rated currently, the way I rate them currently, I mean, they dug themselves a hole, but this is a team that could very clearly get in cleanly as a top 6 seed and not even have to play their way in. So right now, again, I'm projecting that they will be the 7th seed and that they will host the 7-8 play-in against the Clippers. But there are absolutely worlds where they get up to 6. And I think 5 is probably out of reach for them, but 6 is definitely reachable. Man, it's crazy. And, I think ultimately if Memphis and Denver, I agree with you a bit on Denver, although I've gone back and forth on this 100 times this year. So I don't know if I'll ever really kind of come to a fair price for them, but they do feel vulnerable to me just because of the fatigue that they've put on the shoulders of Jokic to this point in the season. But the 2-3 with Memphis and Denver feels attackable, where a 6-7 could very, very well make the NBA Finals. I mean, the Western Conference Finals, and hopefully lose to the Thunder. Yeah. With that, don't forget to check out NBCSports.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks to those of you watching us on our NBC Sports YouTube channel. And if you're listening to us in podcast form, don't forget to subscribe and rate us. Also, a reminder to find all your favorite NBC Sports shows on Amazon Music. Just head to Amazon.com/NBC Sports. From Drew and Vaughn, best of luck.